everyone, welcome to Nerdist Book Club live on Nerdist's YouTube and Geek and Sundry's Twitch page. I forgot to put the lobby music in. I had it up and I didn't play it because I had it all muted. I got excited. Guys, I'm running the show, not only hosting, but quite literally doing the tech for this show as well. So if the audio is no good or if something's up or if you get sick of our three faces, I am so sorry, but that's how this show is going to go. But guys, you do have the live chat in front of you, so they'll be reading out the comments today. And if there are any tech snafus, please let us know so they can.
First comment, Maude, from Lee Travis. We're all good. So
cool.
Maude, you're a hero. I just want everyone to know that Maude is a genius and as well as a beauty, which you guys all knew that before, both of those things, but like also my hero today. So Maude, cheers to you. Let's drink
cheers.
All the wine. I already started. I had
cheers
in here before.
I also just realized that down the bottom I should have put your name and handles, but I didn't do that. So let me introduce the team. To my left, we have Hector Navarro, who you guys know as a familiar face around Nerdist. He does so many different things. Hyper RPG, Hyper Heroes. He's on Fungeons and Flagons. You know him from DC Daily.
El Rey Network.
The El Rey Network with Corrector Mundo. Yeah. The guy does a lot. And then Rachel Heine, who you'll know as this week's host of Nerdist News.
No, how dare you?
She's the editor-in-chief and so much more at Nerdist at the moment. But we love her on Book Club every single week as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We are in the middle of reading Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff, as it says down there, which I learnt to do for the first time today.
Good job.
We are also discussing the series adaptation on HBO, and it's been so cool to see just the different changes, what they've decided to use, what angles they've gone in. We are a little bit ahead in the book, and some people have decided to also finish the book, but it is like almost an anthology-esque type thing, so hopefully not too many spoilers. This time, though, we are focusing on Horace and the Devil Doll. Ugh. So let's get stuck into it. First impressions of this one. I immediately knew that this would be my least favorite.
Is it because of Chucky?
Yes.
I've seen that video.
and
heard many horror stories, but you should tell it again.
Is it because, Maude, is this your least favorite section because of how often and real dolls can become possessed by demons in our world and have targeted you and can easily get access to you and can probably kill you with a knife or something? Is that probably why
they're probably crawling through your window? They're really scrappy.
I will say what I got from this particular chapter, which I think we'll go much more into, I didn't like how they were exploiting and picking on and focusing on and targeting children.
Yes. Of course.
So that for me was kind of like the worst part. They saw the wink,
such
the
a
wink,
low
wink.
blow. Yeah.
So that was pretty. Ugh. But yeah, this. I think the doll just moved. I'm like, no, I don't like it. But also like witchcraft from Lancaster. Like there's a lot happening in this one. But
we got some comments I got to read. Comments, Maude. First comment from Jimmy Sprinkles. 3 cheers for Maude. Hip hip hooray, hip hip hooray, hip hip hooray. Next comment from Nathan S. Cheers to Maude. There you go.
Hell yeah.
I'm a streamer now. Watch out. So to kick off Horace and the Devil Doll, Horace is approached by Captain Lancaster. Now this guy, I am liking less and less and less. Obviously they've used him in the show, but that scene where he's like purposely throwing Letitia around the back of the paddy wagon.
Oh,
yeah.
That wasn't in the book. So I was just like, okay.
No, and he's also in the show, he's got some sort of Frankenstein body situation happening. Just a lot of body horror. I also, I just don't love the idea. Obviously don't mess with kids, but they also, if they were sacrificing children, I wouldn't be surprised. You know what I mean? These are not good people. They only care about getting their own power. They don't care who they hurt along the way, and they're evil. But I just feel for Horace too, that when you're a kid and there's something you have this like innate, it feels innate because you're so young that whatever it was that made you scared of that thing, you probably don't even remember the origins of it. You know what I mean? So like, it just feels like the end of the world and the only comfort is like, well, it's not real. It's not real. If I hide under the covers or I check under the bed, like it's not going to happen. And then in this, it's like, oh God, like all of these things start coming to like, it's hard enough as an adult to realize there's like evil magic out there. But as a kid, how'd you ever get over that?
Yeah.
And you know he's not going to therapy. No one's going to therapy in the 50s, except Betty Draper.
Yeah.
Hector?
What are you laughing at?
It's Rachel's right. Did you want my overall thoughts or? I really like this section a lot. Mm-hmm. I thought that somebody said it in the YouTube chat earlier as well. Somebody said, I think actually, let's see here. Reading Dodo Kiwi, love this section just for the board gaming club. That was really, I mean, look, they started to play a board game that was essentially John Carter of Mars, like the factions, and I went, oh, I would play that. Like I immediately, in fact, I have like a role-playing game of John Carter of Mars right here that I can access, which is great. Yeah, look at this. This is how cool and dorky I am. Boom, baby.
Wow.
John
really
Carter.
Is.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
The role
little
playing
figurines on a map.
Yes, the figurines aren't needed. I ordered a couple, but I still have to paint them, and I've been meaning to do that during quarantine. I've never done that. Never painted them.
Painting. You need to have patience.
Right.
Which I don't have that.
Which I have, but just to look at the bigger picture for this section, another reason I really liked it is in other sections, I think it's very obvious what Matt Ruff is trying to say about the Black American experience in our history. Like it's very clear what like the symbolism he's using or metaphors he's using to mean this experience that Black people have had to suffer or are still suffering, enduring with. And I think in this section, the thing that I would connect it to is the beginning of this section started with Horace trying to call his grandfather and then dealing with a racist telephone operator and her being horrendous. And then afterwards he was asked, well, why didn't you hang up on the lady? And he's like, I'm not going to do that because maybe she could.
There's consequence.
There's consequences
you
to that.
can't
And
act with emotion or like, in the moment. Everything you're like, and I think actually a big theme of this portion is being silenced.
Yes.
And there's different ways
100%.
that Horace has been silenced using magic. Yeah. And that was like really claustrophobic in that sense where he like literally had his voice taken from him and couldn't snitch, couldn't talk, couldn't communicate. But in this instance where she was just like, meh, 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 and he was just like, I don't even want to talk to my granddad anymore.
I know, he was just so bummed out. I think that I'm glad you brought up that magic because to me, the metaphor is maybe this is Matt Ruff was going for, maybe this is what he was going for, maybe not, but I took it as this feels like when little Black kids or little children of color in the United States, and especially in that era, would be intimidated by authority figures, white authority figures that would intimidate them into silencing them. It felt like a metaphor for we're doing this, and if you tell your mom, this bad stuff is going to happen. And when you're a kid, you will freeze up because you don't know any better. You don't know that you can go to people that can help, or you don't know that you can talk to people about stuff like that in a lot of different areas, not just necessarily racism that Black Americans are dealing with, but a lot. I think it's such a relatable feeling that claustrophobia that Horace felt as a powerless, silenced kid. That's what I took it to connect it in terms of what Matt Ruff was trying to say. So I like this section overall very much. Yeah.
I definitely
and Miss Necromancer in the chat just said it's so heartbreaking because what white kid has to actually know that stuff? And it reminded me of that as well, of these conversations that a lot of Black parents still to this day, obviously, have to have with their children because there is this, it is almost this training of how best to protect yourself, and how best to protect yourself is to be quiet, make yourself small, and non-threatening. And that's just the most heartbreaking thing, that all of this is evil and awful and these racist cultists and America, but especially when it does happen to children, when it happens to kids where you don't like Hector, like you said, unless someone tells you, hey, this isn't your fault, this isn't normal, this should not be happening, you don't know that.
Yeah. And I think
because you just assume that adults know what's right.
Yep.
And I think that it's interesting because it's like, I never knew as a kid, I thought that, and it's true, all kids are innocent. And it's the exploitation of that innocence where it's like, they don't know better. They don't have the experience. If an adult is saying, if you do X, Y will happen, who are you to dispute that? But then now with this book, it's like, oh, wow, we're actually hearing even more of the difference between, a white kid's reaction and response and just how much harder it is, again, for black people, black kids especially. And I think that, bringing the mother into it, I was heartbroken about how the police, so the two detectives, Burke and Noble, not Barnes and Noble, as I kept reading, but Burke and Noble just playing good cop, bad cop. Oh, should we tell him? Okay, we'll tell him this thing. Then using his mother in the story, and wanting to protect him. But everything that they are doing, there are laws in place to protect children. You cannot question a minor. There has to be a parent present. They are not allowed to do any of those things. And I think this is where I think race comes into it, where it's like, if you found out that a white kid was getting questioned, oh my gosh, the full force of the law would come after them. Black kid, you're like, eh.
Mm-hmm. Well, and because the cops don't protect them, we've seen that with Letitia. We've seen that across the board here. There are different rules and laws, and there are unspoken ones. Yeah. Just because something is the law, doesn't mean that you will get a fair treatment. And just because something is a law doesn't make it morally right. Yeah. And so they don't have that faith in the law or think oh, well, they shouldn't be talking to me, or, my mom didn't do anything, so she can't get in trouble, because that's not how it's going to necessarily play out because of the color of the skin.
Absolutely. Here's another great comment, and we'll talk about this when we get to it later, when Maude breaks it down a bit. Matthew Kitson says, this section also did a good job of showing how close this family unit is, with how Ruby was able to tell something was wrong without Horace able to say it, which I thought was a really great.
That's my favorite moment of this.
Hence,
yes, this and also a community, family as community, and chosen family, and the people that you surround yourselves with and that you've been through traumas with, and Ruby, knowing that something is wrong and having to try to figure it out, because there are people in his corner, thank God.
Well, it's always such a trope, isn't it? A part of a nightmare is you can't speak, you're trying to scream, you're trying to go, run, and you have no voice.
I have those a lot.
And then another nightmare is no one believes you. This is coming. You're in your head about it. This is not true. And they're both happening to Horace in this. Yeah. So
when I was a kid, my recurring nightmare was that all of my teeth were falling out and I was just bleeding, but no one could see it or believed me that it was happening.
Oh, I had the screaming one, and I couldn't talk, and sometimes I couldn't open my eyes either, and I actually think I was trying to open my eyes in my sleep, but because
that might be sleep paralysis.
Fuck.
You know what else that might be? That might be how do I put this delicately? A spirit that was in your room, and then it would find its way into a doll and just kind of watch you at night. And
so moving on.
If you acted up, it would jump on your
Blue
chest.
Was the comic that Horace drew that they found near Hiram's observatory. So this was planted in the Hippolyta goes to the I forget, but that's when she realizes
the observatory.
The comic is in the her car. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, and when she gets back to the car, those guys have taken it.
The cops demand that Horace ask his mother about it and report back to them. So naturally, he's just like, I'm going to tell Mum straight away that the cops are looking for her. So that's when Lancaster performs a spell on his head that causes, and I didn't know this connection. I thought it was a silencing kind of spell. I thought it was
which it is, right?
But then it also causes inanimate objects to move, and then another prevent him from telling others what had happened. And that was... what an agonizing thing where he's like, I want to, and they're like, are you all right? What's going on? Yeah. He's trying to tell them everyone's in trouble. Horace notices that cartoons and images of black people are staring at him. His friends bring over a strange African pygmy devil doll to their clubhouse, and it attacks Horace. Nah.
I thought this was really interesting, that section where they brought up the sort of blackface dolls and different things. or the way that caricatures of mascots were drawn. And Matt Ruff connects it to like Aunt Jemima, who's a character who I think like maybe recently they retired, but like
it was only within like a year or something. Like
it was a staple of my childhood. Even like just for Matt Ruff to remind readers to be like, hey, there has been caricatures and stereotypes and racist caricatures of Black people put on products for generations, and that's still a thing. And they even brought up
Australia.
Wow. Yeah.
There was a cookie, a biscuit called a gollywog, and it was in the shape of a black doll.
Because that's a thing and the book goes into it, like Denmark or something, that Sinterklaas or whatever, like there is a Christmas celebration where I think it's a majority white country like Norway or Denmark or something like that, where they have a mascot like that, and the people of that country swear up and down, they're like, this is not a racial thing at all, like we barely have Black people in this country, like that kind of defense. But the world audience has been like, nah, you guys need to retire this thing. It's it's offensive, and it's an ongoing conversation. And I thought it was interesting that was brought up, that Matt at least was as a little reminder. Yeah.
It's Nathan S. says Black Pete in the Netherlands.
Right.
Also another really great perspective from Miss Necromancer. This is an interesting note. There's a thing where white people always want to stroke Black people's hair like they are pets or something.
Yes.
So this spell had a double meaning, at least to me, and that's a really good point. And that's something I very thankfully learned from an early age, just from having Black friends and being like, nope.
Don't do that. Don't ask. Don't do. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Matt Ruff, as this white guy, he's doing all this research about Black experiences, and
which I think is great.
He'll come across something like this, and he'll go, "Ooh, that's how the bad guys will do magic." Like that's insane. That's kind of insane.
Yeah, no, and it's. I also think there's this level of, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Ghost World. It's one of my favorite movies. There's a whole piece about a chicken with a racist slur and the original mascot and how that had evolved. And similarly with Jim Crow. Jim Crow was like a black-faced minstrel in American history, and that's where that name comes from. So there is this tradition of, or again in Mad Men, I know that y'all haven't seen it, but Maude, you've seen it. No, you haven't even?
The pilot only. I was doing more research.
But they do this whole horrible dance at one point at like a garden party where they're just in full like cartoonish blackface doing this weird dance. And it's so, I think that's another show that's great, because in a lot of shows that are from an era that is more racist, it'll be like, but we're the good guy, we're different. Right. We believe this. And I don't think that that's just a fair depiction for the most part. So even the characters that you really, love and respect in like Mad Men, they have no idea how to even begin to think about racism or anything like that. So
the little bit of research that I did, the Gollywog biscuits were renamed a little bit ago, I think like a couple of decades ago, because obviously it cottoned on, because we're so isolated from it, and we're like learning about this history because it's it's almost America's secret. So it's not like, hey, by the way, here's all the bullshit that we've been doing. It's not something that like is really common knowledge in a global scale. But I think that when it was just like, oh yeah, cool, this needs to change. Immediately the company rebranded, redid everything. They called them scallywags instead of that.
It's the same thing.
But we would be introduced like, oh, that's a very typical doll from a particular like time, but not know the backstory behind it all.
Mm-hmm. Listen,
just like the introduction we had to the N-word was, oh, this is how rappers talk to their friends, and then it's like, it goes a lot further back than that, and then it's like, all right, we're catching up. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Listen,
because the songs went global, but the history of America was buried.
Yeah, but it's also varied for Americans, and that I can't even get started on.
That's why
what's happening now.
That's why representation in front of a camera and behind a camera is important, because you guys are absolutely right. This hidden history has been that way for all of history, and the way that it's changed is when stories about this time period that are authentic are released at a global scale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to happen when movie studios and decision makers in entertainment decide to, let's do that. Let's put that movie out. Or if people working on those stories also have that, the ability to be truthful, then the world will kind of learn more about it. The same thing happened when Nazis took the swastika and turned it from a symbol of peace to whatever it is that they were going for. So now, if there's ever a defense of a reverse swastika or whatever it is, people have to go, we know that it used to be a peaceful thing, but now it means something different. You got to trash it. You got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Japan changed
the frog. Pepe, whatever his name is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even the creator acknowledged, he was like, I
had to call people out or not call them out even, but be like, just FYI.
We're evolving. It's such a fast rate.
Is this intentional or not? Because my next comment is going to,
I feel like
vary wildly based on your response.
Exactly.
The cure to a lot of like racial things is learning, and I think the reason why it exists is because of ignorance, and we all need to talk a lot more. And there was a beautiful moment in this episode which we'll get to, but I loved the fact that you've got Atticus and you've got the American Korean and you've got an actual Korean all talking. And he's like, oh, you don't understand how I'm perceived in my country. Mm-hmm. And he's got both of them where now he's an outsider in both cases. And she's just like, hold on, what is it like over in America? Because it's so different here. And I loved that conversation because everyone had such a unique perspective on like what was going on and what it meant to be the color of their skin and how they would be received. And I really liked that moment because I've been the one as well where it's like, wait, what's it like where you're from? Whoa, I had no idea. This is really interesting.
Another comment from Fulano de Tal says, it really is like America's Secret. I still remember my friend's shock in Brazil when we saw Hidden Figures. Again, that's exactly what I'm talking about. A movie that is about, and even that movie, people will point to and be like, even this was a little too taking it easy on the reality. You know, it's still a little Hollywood and kind of shiny and nice.
Shiny,
but even then, people in Brazil can see it and go, I had no idea that that's what these women had to deal with when they were working at effing NASA. Like, there you go. So,
and that we didn't, their actual history was not widely known. Mm-hmm. And Stephen Summers in the chat was saying too that are we finally learning, or was it hidden, or Americans just starting to care? And I do think the internet also has a lot to do with it. The internet has given us a lot of horrible things, but also some great things like the show. But also I do think that because we get representation in different media and pop culture, that also has a wider breadth, but also the kind of conversations that you can have. Obviously, sometimes that leads to some mean, bad, hateful people, but it also, if you are open to it, if you do want to learn, if you have either learned or practiced basic empathy for your fellow human being, then you start to realize, oh gosh, I thought I knew this, but I don't. And now I need to learn so much more about it so that I don't inadvertently hurt someone, or so that I can help, or I can do these things. And I think that's a huge part of it too, that my history books were the most whitewashed, and that was in Los Angeles, you know what I mean? So like, it's not, it is a secret, and the more that people are honest about our history and about how we should treat each other and what the reality is, the more you get that pushback of patriotic education and all of these things that are basically, 1984.
You can't
happening in real time
if you continue to ignore.
Right.
If you ignore the problem doesn't go away, and it just builds resentment.
Festers, just grows and festers.
Exactly. The next part of the book, it's interesting. One part because I listened to this twice again. One part I didn't really get. One of the friends who had the doll, the acquisition of the doll was really quite interesting because he's like, I just found it out the back. It was free. They were giving it away, and you're like, ha.
That's a haunted doll.
Right.
For sure haunted. Although I would have definitely taken in a haunted, even if I thought it was haunted, I would have been like, look what I found.
Like the doll that I kind of like doesn't quite open the whole way, and it's like, Mama. Oh, I don't need that in my life. So not only like that, I wanted to know if you guys thought it was planted. If you guys thought it was a plant or a coincidence.
I don't think it was a coincidence, but I don't know that it was planted either. It feels like what I took from this section was that, inanimate objects will come to life, but it's based on the person.
Got it.
And
So
what they're
just didn't
afraid
like
of.
it.
And so it felt like almost like, I'm trying to think of, this is a very silly comparison, I guess, but like in Toy Story with Sid, when all of these like mangled toys start like crawling out of things, it sort of made me think of that, where it's there because whatever the spell is around him is like drawing these dolls and cartoons and things to him because he is freaked out because of the watermelon thing, the watermelon box.
Yeah.
And that nightmare, that made me almost cry. That was so upsetting.
Yeah, it makes
and all of his friends, he's worried for all of his friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great comment from Ian Powell in the chat. Ian says, most everything in this book has a planted vibe. Yeah. And it's interesting because I agree. And if you told me that Matt Ruff meant for every single evil thing or obstacle that these families have to deal with to be because of the Braithwaites, I would believe it because it's that kind of story. But at the same time, when you go back to, let's recall the ghost story section, where Montrose goes and talks to that family that was killed by racist people.
Oh yeah, the Narrow House. Yeah.
The Narrow House. That whole section talks about how this guy, this white guy who ran away with a black woman that he fell in love with and had a kid with, had spells for protections for magicians, but he didn't think to protect his family from regular old average racist people. Yeah. So I feel like the book is trying to kind of tell us both that there's this shady stuff happening with the Braithwaites, but also they're just dealing with, so it may be a plant, but it may be, I didn't feel like the book, or the figure itself, the evil doll, was a racist caricature doll, but it was like an African character that had like a shrunken head and all like exaggerated features. And I'm like, I wonder if Matt Ruff earlier was reminding us about the caricature mascots to be like, look, this is what black people have to deal with when they look at certain characters and figurines and different traditions that have existed. Maybe somebody threw this one out because it was racist or because they were like, oh, I can't be seen with this, or for whatever reason. And then the little kid had to find it. And then the kid brought it as like a monster for their game. And because it is so spooky, Horace, his spell kicked in, like you were talking about, Rachel, and how I think it was Miss Necromancer who said it. I don't think it was a plant because the spell had everything coming alive. Got it. Everything that Horace would look at was coming alive. So maybe it could not have been, but I would believe either way. Right.
And then, of course, it had like some sort of possessive ability because little Bug, flipped the board game. Didn't she push someone down the stairs or threw something away?
I don't think it was Bug at all. I think it was the doll that did it. It came alive.
But no one else was there.
There was an episode of Jackie Chan Adventures that did this exact same thing. The doll came alive after Horace had brought it to life because of his curse. So then Horace leaves. Thank you, Lee. Yes, acknowledging Jackie Chan Adventures. And then the doll, I think, tore up the room and busted out the window. And because the doll was missing, this kid blamed everything on his sister Bug, which is a real cute name.
I loved that.
And it's really cute.
Little Bug. Cute. June Bug.
My light died. Now I'm back. Sorry, y'all.
Oh, I bet Bug is so cute.
It's a very cute name. I also
I got Flossie when I was a kid.
What's that?
What?
My kid nickname. I was Flossie.
Aww.
Why?
Flossie. My mum would call me Flossie.
I was Noodle. Because I was really gangly.
Floss! What do you think Floss is?
I know, I didn't say it because I get it.
What was yours, Hector?
I was also Flocka.
Flocka.
Which means, it means skinny.
It does mean
because again, just
length baby.
There is a Mexican talk show that has been on forever. It's like a big time, like it's like a Regis and Kathy Lee, or live with Regis Philbin. Remember that show from 20 years ago? It's like
He kept doing it with other hosts.
Now it's
but
Kelly
the
and-
original with Kathy the Gifford was
now it's
a wild time.
What is it? Kelly and
Kelly Ripa. I don't know who it is anymore.
Ryan Seacrest. Anyway, there's a show in Mexico City that is called El Gordo y la Flaca, which just means the fat guy and the skinny lady. That's the name of the show.
What was your childhood nickname, Hector?
I didn't really have one that stuck too much because my name was, but you're asking for what kind of,
But your parents would call you.
My mom would call me Santiago, which is my middle name, because I share a first name with my dad. So she's not going to call me what she's going to call her husband. They're divorced now, but what she would call her husband. So that's what I became. My grandmother called me Mijito, which just meant like little boy. I didn't really have like a insulting nickname, or if I did, I blocked it out. I've healed from that trauma, I guess, but I don't recall having any that were like kind of, teasing.
Mine was from my older brother. Well, Noodle was from my older brother, who again is 18 years older than me. So I'm a small child and he's just mocking me. Also, when I started going through puberty, he'd call me Bites, as in mosquito bites. So rude brother, rude. I love him deeply, but he's a dick. But
like really immature.
I know, and he was like
plus
he was
18
old.
years.
If I was 11, he was probably like the age we are right now. Wow. This is just mean for a little girl. Anyway, I was very awkward, but anyway, back to Bug. But it did remind me of seances when you are a little kid.
I told you about mine in the after show a couple of weeks ago, right? Yeah.
And I've had some where I am convinced it was like a parent playing a very cruel trick on us, but it still haunts me. And Ouija boards freak me out.
Whoa. Hang on a second. Did you guys see some of my toys move?
Oh my God, Hector.
The next part
Still light out. You can't scare me when it's not dark.
You can scare me.
I think Grand Admiral Thrawn just moved, you guys.
So the next part I want to talk about is, we kind of touched on it before, and that is having an ally in the family. And that is the fact that Horace cannot talk about it. His lungs contract, his throat closes up, he has coughing fits, his asthma gets too much. And he's just like, it gets worse and worse and worse. He's hearing noises. He doesn't even want to have a sick day. He's not sleeping. He can't be alone. It's getting really bad. This poor kid's probably just got the biggest bags under his eyes. And then Ruby looks after, is just babysitting. And he realizes that he can use the Scrabble words to communicate. And the way she listened to him and immediately didn't question it, she kind of knows enough, because this is a Ruby that has dealt with Caleb.
Braithwaite.
Thank you, Braithwaite. I was like, Wainwright? No. Braithwaite, for enough to know that anything is possible. And so the fact that now he knows, Montrose knows quite a lot about this world. Ruby has a first-hand experience with literally now shedding her skin and becoming someone else. Everyone's kind of dabbled into anything is possible. So when he's like, and she's like, great, yep. What is it? There's a police? Tell me more about it. And then as soon as he kind of built that level of communication and he got the majority out, he could then talk. And then she was like, I know someone I can talk to about this. And I was like, there's another ally. But what's so interesting with the
he's a bad ally.
But that's the thing. And I think that this is really interesting in this book as well, where it's there's different levels of antagonists here. Lancaster is evil. But then somehow Caleb is chaotic neutral.
Right.
He's still not a good guy, and he's still very selfish. But there's so many instances where he just tells the truth. And I'm going to skip to the end, and that's when Caleb comes in, picks up the doll, and he's like, "Oh, this is really quite fascinating, interesting." And then he was like, "What I think Lancaster is doing, he's punishing you and using you to get to me, because he thinks that I'm going to override him, or I'm going to, take over," which I am.
Take over.
Yeah. This is very perfectly timed, because I have been watching a season of The Simpsons each month.
Yes.
And I'm about to finish season 4 on Sunday, and then I'll do season 5 in October, and so on and so forth. There's a episode of Treehouse of Horror that ends just like how this section ends, where a guy shows up after an evil Krusty doll is trying to kill Homer Simpson.
That's making fun of Child's Play. Yeah.
Guy shows up and he goes, "Hey, here's your problem, Chief. Somebody set this thing to evil." And there's just like a click in the back. That's what Caleb did. He goes, "Oh, interesting. Here's your problem, Chief. Let me just," and he like fixes it and kills it. It made me think of The Simpsons so much.
Love the Treehouse of Horror ones. That was my gateway drug into The Simpsons, was
Honestly,
the Treehouse of Horror episodes.
If I could pinpoint that, like the frustration and angst and like my favorite episode with one line, it's donut. What's a donut?
And he goes, "Ah!" And then he leaves, and then it
starts raining.
It's raining again, and it's raining donuts. That Treehouse of Horror is an all-timer. That's a great one.
That's my favorite episode.
Also, I Choose You. That episode is.
I just watched that episode, and Ralph is so sad, but then he becomes such a good actor in their little fourth grade or their second grade play or whatever when he's George Washington. He gets some pain. He's like on this fake little fireplace, and then he takes the Valentine and throws it into the fire when Lisa's trying to be like, "Well, don't you?" Like trying to be in the play, and he's like, and
that's right.
So good. It's so good.
You can see
it's okay. They're friends.
Moment when his heart breaks.
Yeah. It's really sad. I'm watching the last. I just watched the. Wait, Rachel, which one did you just say? You just mentioned the Ralph Wiggum. I'm forgetting what else, but I just watched like Dan'll Plan. Lisa Needs Breakfast.
Oh yeah. Dan'll Plan. Yeah.
I'm finishing season 4 on Sunday. I do it every Sunday at 7 p.m. Lee was like, tell people what time you do it. I do it.
I should because I do really love the early. I haven't watched a lot of the later seasons.
Then just watch them on your own time on Disney Plus if you've got Disney Plus, because they're on there they fixed the aspect ratio. So just watch them on your own time.
Oh, that's good. They should do that for Buffy, not Disney Plus. But
well, I don't think Buffy's on Disney. Sure, is Disney going to buy the rights to Buffy?
Probably, but the what is Fox, isn't it? Oh no, it's Warner Brothers. Anyway, the aspect ratio is also.
Lee says it's on Hulu, and they do need to fix the. But you should just get the DVDs, Rachel. Physical media for the win.
I know, but I lose everything, and I lose it when I move. So, a lot of space. Let's get back to the book.
Back to the end of it, Caleb ends up becoming a little bit of a hero in this instance. Hippolyta is becoming more of a mystery to like everyone else, but they're all connected in some ways, and it's kind of coming to a head, which I find quite interesting, which is what I like.
Yeah, we're almost done with the book, and there is that sort of element that even back in Abdullah's book with the payment for the back payment for all of these years of enslavement plus interest, and it's that same catch where it's like, you helped me, but you're still a part of this whole thing. You're part of the problem. Mm-hmm. But he also saved Atticus, so it and it is that thing of, is Caleb ultimately gonna is he gonna Vader this up and be redeemed? I don't think so. I think he's a bad dude. But he is at least getting these characters because he's using them for different ends.
They're players in his game.
He's using them as chess pieces, pawns.
Great comments from the chat.
Until he doesn't need them anymore.
Antonio Vargas says, agree, Caleb is chaotic neutral. And Green_Jenny says, I suppose all Lovecraft deities are true neutral at their core. So...
yeah, because they are just like, or true chaos at their core either. It's just like, you might go insane and the world will end while Cthulhu is taking a nap, like.
I like the fact that they are true chaos at nature, because that really ties us into the episode of the show. Do you want to move into that, or do we want any final thoughts on Horace and the Devil Doll?
Yeah, I just have a question about that. Maude, what inanimate objects would your subconscious bring to life to kill you?
That's exactly why I put that in the script, by the way, was to make her answer.
What inanimate objects would freak you out?
Specifically, like, don't just say dolls. Like, what kind of doll? If it's a doll,
anything that shouldn't be alive, that started being sentient in any.
But even
you can't see it, but
from
like a toaster,
like a Woody doll.
Like, even this
What about,
little
like-
fucker right there. Like, if he started talking to me and if he was like,
What
hello,
is
Maude,
that?
Hadouken, it's Ryu.
Okay.
But, like,
Makes
even
sense.
that, if he was like, Maude, I'd be like, nah.
Really?
Not even if it's your
Like the
favorite.
Indian in the cupboard?
Yeah,
I always
man.
wanted all my toys to come to life.
Who's your favorite fictional character of all time?
You're trying to see if they were like, sup, Maude. No, it's so weird. And, like, I have such a weird thing about sort of, if something's, there's got to be an intention or a reason behind something that is not real coming to life. And what is that intention? Why do they want that? Are they so
What
afraid?
if it has the intelligence of a child? Like, for example, what if this toy that I have came to life and it was this size?
No.
Okay, could be, but I mean, I had Tamagotchis and things like that, so I'm okay.
Yeah,
with,
you
like,
put it in your pocket. You put him in your pocket, kiss him. What if that happened?
And then he goes, kill, Maude.
Yeah.
Kill.
You know what you have to do, laddie? Burn the house down. Burn them all.
Yeah, I don't need.
Someone in the chat, Game Wizard 001 says, would Maude freak out with small soldiers? Have you ever seen that, Maude?
You ever see that movie,
Yeah.
Maude?
I think so.
With
It depends on their
Everwood.
intention. Like,
Gregory
I would be.
Smith. We went to elementary school together. Weird.
All right, brag about it.
I would be very
Hollywood.
skeptical for a very long time. And as we know, like, actions match words. And so if they keep trying to convince me that they're good, but they show me that they're good, that's when I will start.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about the show.
Let's talk about
Okay.
the show. This episode, I mean, what's really, really new for us is that we haven't read this. This is completely new. This is completely
New character.
their take on it all, and we go into an origin story. We are discovering what Atticus's time in the war was like, or in his serving in the army.
The Korean War.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting, and I know, Maude, you were mentioning that some of we read critiques that some of the Korean culture was not accurate in the show, which I believe. But in terms of a historical, a look at something in American history, we don't talk about the Korean War a lot,
Ever.
generally.
Yeah.
And it had some gnarly atrocity. Like, it was really, really, really bad. And
What
it's
do you know
mostly
about it? Because what was news to me was Korea's attitude against Japan, which was like trying to remove all of their identity, and then also treating America like that was like propaganda and like they were an enemy as well. I did not know any of that, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they're trying to fight communism, and it becomes this sort of like the devil you know, which America does all the time, where we're like, we'll help you get rid of communism, and then we'll ruin your whole situation while we do it.
Bye, clean up the
but-
mess.
Yeah, see ya. Hope this doesn't come back to bite us in 10 years. It will. But it's just not as documented, and what has been documented. I actually read an interview with Jonathan Majors about this episode. Kang, future Kang the Conqueror. And he was saying that he read a bunch of memoirs and nonfiction books about the Korean War before playing this character, because it's in this period of time that is not as documented, and obviously there are so many atrocities in war, but for some reason this particular one, there was just this this very sick mentality behind it that I would recommend researching it. But I appreciated too that in this episode, A, we don't even get to Atticus until halfway through, but B, that it made Montrose's actions in the show make a little bit more sense to me thematically when he killed, when he murdered the indigenous person.
Is it like, are you saying it's like father, like son? Like if Montrose...
No, that people who are, actually I have a quite a good quote to read from a really great piece I read the other day on IGN.
Pull that up.
Also, of course, Ty Gooden for Nerdist has some amazing pieces, but Toussaint Egan wrote this for IGN, and it's just a really great, oh God, almost knocked everything over.
It all came to life.
Oh no. And speaking about the scene where Atticus shows up as all of these women are being accused of being, these nurses are being accused of being communists. And all of a sudden the one guy's gun runs out of ammo or breaks, and the addict just comes up and shoots one of them in the head. And you're like, that's our hero. What? Like he's already, he clearly has anger issues and has been through a lot, but it's still a very...
Further on, he said, I was following orders. Yep. And this is
right.
what's super interesting, where it's like you have to compartmentalize what is right and what is wrong, and you just have to obey a command. And I actually went on a massive train of thought with this, because I've copped a lot of heat from wanting an ability, we're talking superpowers, whatever, but this mind control or having like a power of persuasion or being able to kind of like, and it's so interesting because everyone fundamentally goes, that is an evil trait. You are taking away someone's right. Mm-hmm. In every understanding of that notion, if you are in an army, you are literally having your actions removed and your what you believe is right and wrong removed from you because you are following orders. And
absolutely.
What I think
and
really
it justifies actions that you would not normally
never
take.
Do. It's like absolutely. I was following orders, and so it's like you are being controlled in that way. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, if everyone's go-to is that if you could mind control, it's immediately used for evil.
Yeah.
My argument has always been, that's such a perspective thing, because I would use it to overrun that mindset. Where there are so many people in positions of power that are abusing that position of power, but because they are right at the top, we are absolutely powerless against them. So when I
hypothetically, hypochondria,
hypothermia.
Yep. When I hypothermia about all of these superpowers, something that really excites me is that you can get something greater than the abuse of power. And
I think that's what Atticus was saying in the previous episode too, with Letitia saying we could use this for good. It's a slippery slope though. It's sort of a similar issue with systems of government, thinking about socialism, for example, and which, like I've said this many times, my dad's a democratic socialist, big labor lawyer, just big old liberal dude. But the problem is the problem is human nature. And the problem is also, once you have that power, how do you not become, even if you're not as bad, how do you let that go? How do you stop doing that? And it actually ties into the brief quote that I will read from Atticus shooting this nurse, just because I just thought this was so well written, and I could never say anything this smart. It's a horrifying and affecting scene, not the least of which for how uncompromisingly it depicts the way in which members of historically disenfranchised populations can be coerced into becoming complicit perpetrators of state violence through the implied promise of respect, an obligation to the greater good, and the sheer force of imperialism. And that just hits like the army, all of these huge, countries and colonists and imperialists. And this idea that, well, if I join this, then maybe I will be more legitimate in the eyes of those who are racist dicks and hate me. But then these oppressed people end up oppressing others. And that's what Montrose, it connected those two dots for me. And also Christina being someone who wanted to be a part of, this evil gang.
Yeah.
But couldn't because she was a woman and wears a man's skin in order to get to that place and does all these evil things to others without realizing but I'm doing the exact same thing, but worse.
Stephen Summers put it really beautifully. He said, he who fights monsters must be careful not to become a monster themselves. Mm-hmm. This is the thing. And I think for my thing is, it's like, I get so riled up over sort of like helplessness and situations where there is that hierarchy of power and someone isn't doing a good job in their leadership position. And it's like, if they're at the top, then no one can kind of regulate them. And I have recognized that I am a natural born regulator. And all that means is if someone is behaving poorly, to kind of interject and be like, not cool, bro, you know, like just that. But then I also have a complex with that. And it's like, well, who am I to say what's cool and what's not cool? Then that is like, that means I am judge, jury, and executioner by deeming someone's behavior good or not. So it's like, yeah, that's what it's like to be inside my head, basically.
It's a bit, no, because there is
shades of gray.
And it's absolutes, right? It's if you are listening and you are like trying all of those things, gesundheit.
Thank you.
I think that you can, it's really these high positions of power that corrupt you, right? And also there's a lot of chat, I think, going on about monsters, what makes a monster and what makes people monstrous.
And this episode
and
really
this whole
tackled
episode
that.
was so, and it's this like tragic romance.
Oh, it was so sad, you guys.
I loved it.
We gotta highlight Jamie Chung is
She was
phenomenal,
amazing,
so good.
And watching her in this episode, I thought to myself, she's been acting for forever, since she was real young, and she has never been given a role, at least that I've seen, that has been this challenging and amazing. Like it just made me go, oh my god! I always thought of Jamie Chung as a specific type of actor,
pretty girlfriend, love interest.
She's been pigeonholed in those kinds of roles. To see her in this, I thought, this woman is a star and she should be leading a movie or a show herself. Amazing. Great comments from the chat. Nathan S. talking about the Korean War says the Korean War is called the Forgotten War.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brad Easton says this was the best episode of the season so far, in my opinion. Matthew Kitson says, love that it was Atticus's past told through Gia's perspective, which I think is very interesting. And Nathan S., he's continued to comment about the monster aspect and said that something was, somebody said that they read something in a Hulk comic book. Anyway, I was so conflicted in this episode because as soon as Atticus shot that woman, I thought, Atticus is evil. This is horrible. How can we? And by the end of the episode, I was rooting for both of them to figure it out.
But it's so funny because Atticus is a monster and has demonstrated monstrosities, but has shown a goodness. But then you have this monster, the Mudga?
Kumiho?
Is that the name of the monster, like demon creature, the Nine Tails? The Nine Tails.
I think it's Kumiho.
It was so interesting that initially was summoned to make an atrocity, to kill the dad.
But for vengeance against an atrocity, the stepfather who's been abusing his daughter, and the idea,
I don't know if it was stepfather, was it?
Yeah, because
already had the daughter.
When she confronts her mother,
he preyed on her.
But also that situation is abuse. It felt like to me that she used her daughter as this vessel for vengeance, and then ostracized her and punished her and made her believe it reminded me of in abusive situations and things, victim blaming and all of these kinds of things. You can't feel this. You're not who I need my daughter back from this thing that happened to her. And that just like blew my mind. And their relationship as told through movies of this time period. We've dealt with a lot of books from this era, but Meet Me in St. Louis is one of my favorite movies that I watched as a kid. And I thought that the other Judy Garland movies that they reference throughout all have something to say. Judy Garland herself is someone who is taken advantage of by people in positions of power, like Atticus and like the Kumiho. And then they also have that magical moment where they watch the movie together, and I was just like,
but then this monster who has been told cannot love, cannot feel, just has to suck 100 souls, goes, I think I'm capable of love, and I don't want to take the 100th soul because I actually want to continue living and existing even though, and then the mother's manipulation. No, I summoned you, and so now you are a disgrace if you do not do my bidding. So you have no identity. You are not your own person. Get out of my daughter. I did this all for her. Also, I think what was super interesting, I say with a grimace, was the fact that Ninetails absorbed the stepfather's memories and went, he loves me.
Oh yeah, that was.
She's like, no, I mean, you don't know that yet. And you don't know
that's
why.
An abuse. That's sort of a like Stockholm syndrome abusing element, but also that then when her mother is saying, you know, you're a monster, you can't love, you're not my daughter, etc., and she says, you didn't sing those songs for me. You were using what happened to me as an excuse to not love me. And you also let this happen to me until you didn't.
Oh, that. And you knew what was happening. And it's your shame that has caused all of this.
That she's carrying. That she has to just straight up murder these dudes and live. And now she has the lives of 99 men in her head, and she said they're more bad than good. Why would I ever want to be a human? And I was like, that's fair, honestly.
But then she met Atticus.
I know, and he was such a little goober.
Yeah,
it's like he was so innocent.
Count Monte Cristo. And then she talks about the movie, and he goes, well, you should read the book. It's different than the movie. I was like, oh, snap.
I know.
Cool. And then we have to talk about this, you guys. She could see the future of these men that she was killing. And she saw Atticus' future. And she knew that he was going to die if he went back home. Is he going to die by the end of this season, you guys? Is he going to die in the book?
He might come back, though.
How? Oh, wait, how?
I don't know. It's there's a bunch of magic. I'm just saying, like, there was a flash of, like, a baptism sort of situation. She thinks he's going to die. There's another naked lady in bed with him.
Right.
That was not Letitia.
I assume that meant that was after Atticus came back to the United States.
I don't know, though, because it felt like it showed
the past when he lied.
It did, I guess, but I don't know.
The point is that this character has now been told to us that the show is going to kill him off.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And it also made sense that earlier in the season, he called this phone number, and it was a Korean woman, and it
was after he was talking about Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah. He said you should not. And the woman on the phone goes, you shouldn't have gone home.
Mm-hmm.
And now that was explained.
Oh shit!
It's a crazy.
And that was her. And then he sees her in his nightmare, and we see later that she is able to not eviscerate him, but she does. Pentacle all up in his face.
Yeah, there's a couple of things going on there because I'm like, all right, there's a lot of legs or whatever this is, and they're furry.
Tails, 9 tails.
Well, that's the thing. When you first see it, I was like, oh, this is like
spider.
This looks like tentacle porn. Oh, but
yes,
they're furry.
I thought my first note was hentai.
Yeah,
hentai murder.
But then I was like, wait, it's not tentacle-like because I was like, oh, you know,
they're furry.
Lovecraft. All right, but yeah, and then I was like, they're furry, so I was like, oh, they're spider legs. Oh.
I thought so too, but then it's the 9 tails of the fox, and then
when she spelled it out, it's like Hermione all over again, which is like,
yes,
curse of the 9 tails. I was like, oh, thank you.
Well, and there's also
you use
this
a Firestone on a Vulpix, and then that's how you get a 9 tails. Got it.
Right, and then you have sex with them and murder them. But I also really enjoyed. He has that nightmare of her. In the last episode, he's figuring out the language of Adam, and it basically says something like, you will die. And so he calls her as like, how did you know? And this episode not only introduces us to a character who I'm obsessed with, and if they did a second season and it was all about her, I would be super on board.
Because she's bisexual!
100%. Ugh, and her gay communist friend, R.I.P. That was so upsetting.
No.
And where she was saying it's not, what does it say? There's nothing wrong with being different.
It's everyone else that is making us out to be the monster that is
broke my heart. And then,
but that's where she got the inspiration, where she's like, wait a second, you're right.
Yeah,
everyone else that's the monster or the problem.
Yeah.
I'm not. If I choose not to be, then I'm not.
I don't have to be. And the quote that got me at the end, when she finally tells Atticus, like, you murdered my best friend. You murdered all these women in front of me, and you're a monster and all of these things. And she said, then I got to know you and I realized how this war has torn you apart. We've both done monstrous things, but that does not make us monsters. We can be the people we see in each other. We just have to choose to be. And that feels like a big theme of this, with Montrose, with everyone going into it. I mean, I don't have high hopes for Caleb / Christina, to be quite honest, but I really loved that mentality, because there are Hector, you were saying, Atticus just did this monstrous thing. So many people have joined the army of wherever they're from and done these atrocities. And it is brainwashing. Oftentimes there are all of these elements. Things get normalized.
Yeah.
The brain adapts pretty quickly. Look at how, I mean, we're all sad and indoors and there are a lot of other elements, but look how quickly we adapted eventually to
a lot of
lockdown.
It's survival, though. If you have to do it.
It is.
Kill or be killed.
And
Are you kidding?
And for Atticus, it seemed better than being with Montrose. It was better than being there.
I know. And earlier Maude was talking about, I forget who was talking about it, but the idea that communities of color will join armed forces for what, like we were saying, for maybe there'll be respect, but I like how in this episode it lays out, no, Atticus specifically did this to get away from his dad. And I thought, okay, that checks out to the rest of the character, yeah.
And how do you know what that's going to be like, and how quickly you will end up doing these things, because you have these scary, but yeah, I thought it humanized everyone. It made we get a better framing of Atticus just from how he is with Letitia. I mean, maybe he slept with a couple people in between, but like he's so confident in how he sort of goes for her in the bathroom. That whole situation, saucy stuff. And in this one, he's just like, hold on.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I really like you. I'm a virgin. I really like you. I don't know. I have a lot of feelings. He's so cute.
I do like that the overarching theme for all of this is who really is the monster. Mm-hmm. And we had it again where it's like the police are, they're weaponized in this way. They are like so much more, and they're abusing their power, even though there's the doll and there is like supernatural themes, which one really is the monster that we're dealing with? In this particular instance, it's like they both have monstrosities within them, but they're trying to move past that and not be the monster. And like there's a choice in that. That is our time for tonight's show, though. We will continue discussions for the after show of Nerdist Book Club over at Geekbomb. If you want to get involved, all you have to do is just sign up to a tier at Geekbomb's Patreon, which is patreon.com/Geekbomb, and join us in the book club chat about 5 minutes after we log off here, so we can fill up our wine, have a little drink, do our thing. Your homework, I'm guessing, is to finish.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, good. Is to finish the book. I had John in the YouTube chat was like, "Hey, I'm trying to support my local book store. I'm wondering if there's any chance of an early announcement for the next book." Yeah, I want to support my local bookstore. It takes time to order books.
Yeah, we will tweet it out. We can tweet it out maybe tomorrow.
There you go, John, so that everyone can support their local bookstores, because everything is a little bit slower now. We're going to be tweeting what the next book is tomorrow. Follow Nerdist on all your socials.
I think from now on, I will not sing Greatest Showman, but I just need everyone, especially Lee, to know that I want to. But from now on, we can announce, within a week before, so that you can do that. So you can go to your local bookstore, because we support that. So we'll do that.
Exactly. But for now, finish the book. We've only got one more week of Lovecraft Country. So any kind of questions that you are forming when reading this, write it down, have the discussion in the after show, talk to us about it next week. We're going to have a different book next month, I guess, is October, which Rachel, I can see that you're wearing something to already anticipate October. Yeah.
Everything in my apartment is black and white and spooky. But yes, I did wear, I wish I had my mask. I have a really good orange with spider web mask.
Cool.
I'll put it in the chat in Geekbomb.
Done. Thank you so much for joining us with the discussions. I had to burp. Discussions for Lovecraft Country. Discussion.
Let's go.
Thank you so much for joining us with the Discussions for Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff. We've got one more week of this. Finish the book. We'll see you over at the Geekbomb after show.
Thank you, Maude, for running tech and saving the day.
Oh, shit. I have to actually turn this off. All right.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
3, 2...